And welcome back to Hannity. Now, last week's protesters rioted in Ferguson, Missouri over the Michael Brown grand jury announcement. Yet the violent death of a man in St. Louis on Sunday has received very little media coverage. Now, police say that 32-year-old Zamir Begich was in his vehicle on Sunday morning when, quote, several juveniles approached his car and began damaging it. Well, Begich then reportedly exited the vehicle, and the teenagers then attacked him with hammers, and he later died of the wounds. Now, city officials say there's no evidence the crime was based on race, but the victim's brother, well, he told FoxNews.com that he wants authorities to, quote, investigate every possible motive. Here with reaction, former LAPD Detective Mark Furman and former NYPD Detective Bo Dietl. All right, so you got these kids bludgeoning this guy to death with a hammer. Is the president going to send 3 White House representatives to his funeral? Is the president going to comment on it? Are they going to have a meeting with Al Sharpton? Is Eric Holder going to weigh in, or is this just go away?
You know, this thing here, and there was supposedly an attack prior to this by these kids, but the guy got away. Now, you had this group there that actually viciously killed him with a hammer, and now people are talking. There was another kid that was shot through the car window during the riots last week when they had the riots last Tuesday. These things are all occurring. You know, people have to realize who's going to come. They need the police to be there. The police have to investigate it. And they didn't say anything about what the race of these kids were with the hammers that smashed the guy's head in. And right away, all of a sudden now we're at a point where there is other crime. And this was not a racial crime with Michael Brown.
But they're saying
that's the biggest problem.
The UPI and KMOX in St. Louis reported, I'll throw this to Mark Furman, we came here for freedom from the Serbs, to get our freedom. Now we're getting killed by African Americans. That's not fair. They don't even mention, as Bo's pointing out here, race in this case. Mark, what's your reaction? Are we going to hear from the White House?
Well, of course, we're not going to hear from the White House, and of course it's a racial case. You don't have 3 juveniles running around the neighborhood with hammers, and they just kind of, by chance, were damaging this car that stopped at a stop sign. He was targeted because of his race, and I've gone online, and there's actually somebody that videotaped from their phone the crime scene after the fact, and they're talking about the statements that were being yelled before, during, and after this incident, and it has to do with kill the white people. Is it true? I don't know. But it sure begs the argument, why was he killed? Robbery? Carjacking? No, neither one. He was killed because he was at the wrong place and he was the wrong color. Racial crime.
All right, let's go to Charles Barkley's comments. They've gotten a lot of play. And I give him a lot of credit because there were people that were willing to rush to judgment without having any facts in hand, including the president, Al Sharpton, Eric Holder, not Charles Barkley. Listen to what he said.
Like them jack who are looting. Those aren't real black people. Those are no real black people. They're not out there looting. We have to be really careful with the cops, man, because if it wasn't for the cops, we'd be living in the wild, wild west in our neighborhoods. I think we can't pick out certain incidents that don't go our way and act like the cops are all bad. I hate when we do that because think about it. Do you know how bad some of these neighborhoods would be if it wasn't for the cops? There's no excuse for those people to be out there burning down people's business, burning up police cars. That serves no purpose.
You know, he said more than that. He also went on.
Yeah, you know what he talked about too? He talked about when there are young black men that want to study and get ahead, all of a sudden the ones that really don't want them to get ahead say, oh, you're acting white now because you're talking too clear and you're getting too much of an education, you're becoming white. There is no white or black. This country's for black and white. There's no color sequence here. And you want to know something? Charles Barkley hit the nail exactly on the head. This is America, and people should get educated. People should be able to speak correctly and not, and you know what the problem, again, it goes back, and I'm sorry to say, it goes to the rap music and all that nonsense, and with the language that's used there, and it just goes right back into the neighborhoods, and this is how the bad ones act.
If we're going to look at the socioeconomic issues involved with this, Mark, you got to admit, inner city schools are horrible. You know, the liberal welfare state has not worked. We've got 50 million Americans in poverty, 50 million Americans on food stamps. The American dream isn't there for them today. And I would argue that the very people that say they have a monopoly of compassion for the poor and minority communities, their policies have hurt these communities. And then they come in as the savior and they whip people up into a frenzy, creating the impression that they're going to get a verdict that was never going to come in this case. Was there any chance the grand jury was going to come back with some type of charge? I don't think so.
I don't think if they actually paid attention to the evidence, certainly not. If they were being held hostage and they actually took the bait, of course they'd come back with an indictment. But you said something interesting about the inner city, Sean. I've worked that part of city in Los Angeles, the greater part of my career, and I'm going to tell you this. 80% of the people are trying to get their kids in school, get them educated. They're trying to go to work. They're trying to work 2 jobs. They're trying to not catch a bullet in a drive-by when they eat dinner. They're locked down at night. Those are the people we don't hear. Those are the people, just like good Muslims, that can't come forward because they'll be targeted. This is what's happening. We're hearing the gang members, the hoodlums, the thugs, the activists, the anarchists.
Hey, Mark,
that's who we're hearing from
These
right
are the
now.
people that sat on the grand jury. These are the eyewitnesses in the neighborhood that are afraid they may be identified.
That's right.
But they were committed to the truth because they want their neighborhood safer.
You know what, too, Mark?
Exactly.
And
Those
Mark,
are
Mark, and you watch today, Mark, in the United States Congress, they continue to put their hands up like that's what happened. In the New York City school system, 80% of the minority kids are graduating and they can't read properly. They're pushing them through, and this is where it all stems from. You got a democratic city with Chicago, New York, and these kids should be educated and let them learn. They push them through, and that's part of the problem.
All right, we got a break there. Guys, good to see you both. Thank you. Mark, thank you. And on a busy news night, we continue here tonight on Hannity.
If this was a hangman's noose, it's not right, and we all deserve better.
Hangman's noose, very harsh words from the Reverend Jesse Jackson in reaction to the grand jury's decision. So is the left in this country, are they purposely trying to undermine our justice system? Coming up next, we get reaction from the great one, Mark Levin, from his bunker as Hannity continues. Plus, never before seen video, an exclusive Hannity video from inside another store in Ferguson as looters are literally rampant. Now, the owner of this establishment will join us, and he wants your help. That's all coming up as we continue tonight.